I am recording this for anyone who is wondering so if you don't want to be seen on camera, just make sure you've got the camera off. Otherwise, if you're kind of asking something or you want to say something, you will be seen on camera. But it's just going to be going up on YouTube. I'm just going to make sure I let everyone in here and give people a few minutes to enter in so that you all get a chance. And thank you all so much for joining us today. I hope you've been enjoying the last couple of weeks. We've had an awful lot of stuff going on online between our pattern highlights and business highlights and reminiscing and different lives we had with Laura Nenkel last week and a previous Instagram live as well. And I wanted today to actually introduce you to a lot of people who are working, some of them behind the scenes, some of them you may have seen their faces, but I thought it might be nice to actually get to meet as many of the Stolen Stitches crew as possible. You won't get to meet everyone, but you'll get to meet a good few of them. And first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go mute myself here and hand you over to Hannah, who is going to walk around the shop. Now downstairs we have got Hannah, and I think Laura is behind her somewhere. There we go.
Hi.
They're both downstairs, and Laura, anybody who has bought from us will have dealt with Laura because she does all of that gorgeous packaging that goes out. She takes some of the amazing studio shots of all of our yarn around the studio. So you've probably almost all interacted with Laura at some point over the last couple of years. And at this point, I can't actually imagine Stolen Stitches working without Laura. So I'm not even going to think about that. And the most recent addition is Hannah here, who's holding the camera. Hannah's a digital marketer, and she has been taking over much of our social media over the last few months and doing a fantastic job. Particularly the last couple of weeks have been fairly intensive for her because she was thrown in the deep end with all of this birthday celebration, and it did mean that she got to know Stolen Stitches very, very well. So it was, I want to thank both of you very much, and I'm going to hand it over and let you take a tour around the shop because you can't be here. I can also see there's a bunch of people popping up here on chat, letting us know where we're coming. We've got Colleen from Maryland. We've got someone in Florida, Texas, Canada, Virginia. Yeah, keep them coming. Just pop them into the chat. Let us know where you're coming from so that we can get a sense of how international this fantastic community is. So we are now touring around the shop down here for anyone who hasn't been before. It's a small little shop because obviously a big part of what we do is shipping out online. So the physical shop is half of the space, and then storage is the rest of it. So we started with the new over there. And now we're moving down, there's the new worsted, and over here is all of the various different yarns that we have from Fiber Space and Life in the Long Grass. Oh, here, this is Liz's cake. She made a knitted birthday cake, which is pretty awesome. There's me sitting on top. I think it's me anyway. I'm gonna assume it's me. And we've got skeins of Nua, and there's a little cake even with knitted gloves inside. It's just the cutest thing in the entire world. So a huge thank you to Liz for that. It was very, very special. And now we've got the last little bit around the shop here. We've got our cotton yarns. The back has got a lot of our Irish yarn, Donegal yarn, Blosta yarn, and both Blosta Light and the Blosta. So they were added over the last few years with our Celtic Knits Club. Yarn and needles, some flowers from Sue, which are just gorgeous. And there is the Holly Blue cardigan. It was, I missed it. The Badly Made books were back here. These were all taken from our trip to Donegal almost this time last year when we went up to visit the mill. We took all of these photographs, and Badly Made books turned them into notebooks for us. And there are a few prizes as well popping around from Badly Made books. Holly Blue cardigan for our knit along this year. And where are we? There's a blanket, and here are all of our needles across the back and buttons. And I think we're coming to our birthday celebration section over here, where we've got, this is the knitted cake, which is not, well, not, sorry, this is not knitted. This is an edible cake, but it's done to look like knitting. It is just gorgeous. This is Rory's Cakes down in Douglas and Cork. Everything is edible except for me on top, apparently. I thought the coolest thing is apparently the ball of yarn is in fact a ball of rice, a Rice Krispie ball, and that's covered. But he did just an amazing job. So I think that is probably most of our tour around the shop and the birth. There's, yes, we missed the balloons over there and the samples up there. So if you're close by in Cork, just pop on in to come visit for the afternoon. We're here from 3 to 5. So that is the first section here. I'll try and unpin Hannah down here so they can remove the spotlight. Thank you, Hannah and Laura. Bye.
Bye.
So now we're down to 3 of us. I don't know if any of you recognize Nadia, who's up here, and Joe down below. So we're going to go first of all to Nadia, because Nadia is the very first person who joined me in the business. And I feel a little bit guilty because I popped her in at the very last minute on camera about half an hour ago. I said, hey, Nadia, would you like to come in and meet people? So she got like thrown in at the last second. But I thought that you would all like to see her face, because you've probably heard her voice and you've definitely heard her writing. Because way back in, we were trying to actually sit down and figure out when she started working with me, and we pieced it down to thinking that it was 2016. And it was when I was still just a designer, before I had done yarn, and I was getting a bit overwhelmed with all of the administration and the back end and the blogging, social media, newsletter. And Nadia, who is working in This Is Knit in Dublin, says, well, what, you need to get somebody to help you. And I said, do you know anyone? And lo and behold, she started working with me from that point on. And quite frankly, at this point, a bit like with Laura, I can't imagine Stolen Stitches without Nadia, because a huge part of who we are, our voice, has actually come from Nadia as much as it has come from me. She may sometimes deny that, but it is absolutely the case. So I owe her more than I can actually say. And I don't often say it often enough. But also, she's grown with the business. So I'm going to get you to, are you on mute, Nadia? So would you like to come and kind of maybe give us our meeting story in your words rather than me talking? And cheers and thank you.
Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh God, I was talking to Carol earlier because Hannah and Laura didn't realize when I actually met Carol, and it's a really embarrassing story. And Joe was there as well. Way back in, I can't remember when we launched Contemporary Irish Knits, but
probably 2011, I think.
11.
I think
it's the first time we met, and where Carol was launching her video in Dublin in This Is Knit, it was upstairs. I used to work there, and I had no idea who Carol was. At this point, she was already like a famous Irish designer, but I had no idea. And I just assumed that Carol had been doing this a really long time, and her book launch was sold out. It was a packed room full of people. And I was setting up the chairs and getting ready, and I just turned around and Carol was rehearsing the speech and the presentation, and Joe had like set up the table behind and we were all ready to go. And I just went, oh, that's fine, sure, you're not nervous. Except Carol hadn't stood in front of people before, and I didn't really realize this. It was like one of her first full room things, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to make Carol feel better. I spent the entire night hovering, just going, this is going brilliant, don't worry. And it was really embarrassing. But the night was lovely. Carol made everyone who came just feel really relaxed, like they were learning cables from a friend. And it kind of felt like sharing a glass of wine and cable secrets. And that's when I got to really know Carol, kind of after the event and sitting there. And then over time, I was lucky enough to get to work with Carol, and then I met Joe a few times, and it just kind of made sense. I think we've always kind of worked together really well. We think in a similar way, so it
Yeah.
was really easy.
And
Carol
Nadia
also,
always challenges me, which is actually very good. Having someone who will call out that elephant in the room and say, "This is a really bad idea." Like that, Nadia is really good at that. So is Joe, actually. So I've got two of them.
I don't know. I think I'm the person who pokes everybody, as in I'm virtually in the team and I go, hey, did anybody remember this? Or maybe we should do this, and no one wants to hear it because everybody's really tired. That's me. I'm the person who they all take a breath and they go, okay, yeah, no, we'll do it.
Yeah.
But it's so much fun.
Yeah.
Hannah and Laura just make it so much fun all the time.
And it is
I think
important, and you're totally right though, the fact that often it's times when you're in a rush because there's something, it's like, I just want to get it done. You're like, I know you just want to get it done, but we don't want to just do it. We want to do it really well. And you keep our standards way up there. So you don't just let us not do it, basically. So
really funny, during the YouTube live with Laura Nelkin, I can't remember who I was having a conversation with in KnitHub at the time, but they went, I realize you're an admin over there. And I was like, yeah. And then there was another person going, I don't think I've met you before. And I went, if I'm doing my job well, you'll never know who I am. And it was just really funny. And then there was some other people who were like, this is our like 4th or 5th Cal with you. And I'm like, oh, so nice.
Yeah. Just now Nadia can no longer be a ninja. She's no longer incognito. We've put her front and center, which is as it should be, because you should be acknowledged for what you're doing, because it's too easy for everyone to put their heads down and just get on with things. And that's actually what the most special thing about taking this birthday party is it's a chance to sit back and think about what we've done, where we've come from, because we so rarely do that, because life is so busy, the business is so busy, everything is busy. So actually taking the time to take a few weeks to appreciate where we've come from, all the things we've learned, and how we all work together is just, it's wonderful. It's hard work. I will not admit, I will not deny it. The last 2 weeks have been a lot of work, but it's amazing. Because the time is ticking on, I had been wanting to drop in some questions for some spot prizes along the way. So I'm going to do the first one. What I'm going to do is I'll ask the question. We'll also pop it up in the comments. Just put your answers into the chat, and Nadia is going to pick at random one of the answers as we go through. We're going to 6 them all together over the course of it. So the very first one should be a fairly easy one, I would hope. What was the very first Stolen Stitches yarn? So just pop it up in the comments, in the chat, and we will pick a winner from the chat. So first question. Now, Nadia, was there anything you wanted to add there? Or actually, if anyone's seeing questions popping up or anything in the live there, just give me a shout in case I've missed something. So
Carol, there was a lot of people saying they couldn't see the shop tour earlier, so we might do that at the end, have another quick walk around.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll keep Hannah on tap up there, and we'll pull her in a little bit.
If anybody wants to ask any questions, go ahead. Like from any of us, yeah. Like Hannah and Laura are right there. Joe is here. Carol's here. So this is your chance to find out a Stolen Stitches question.
This is true. Anything random, the stranger the better. I also, because we're going through, and I've actually, anyone who's on here, I've already introduced and have told you who they are, and you've gotten to see them. There are a few more that are behind the scenes that I want to go ahead and introduce as well and say thank you. So one of the first ones that I imagine a lot of you would have interacted with is Emer Early, because she is on KnitHub. She works with our test knitters, and she is the person, particularly on weekends, when she jumps in before I get there and will help you out with knitting questions. And she's amazing. And she's also a designer, so she does some of the designs for the Celtic Knits and for the Seasons clubs as well. I'm not sure if Emer is on here today, but if you are, Emer, thank you. And another two who you're never going to come across are Eve and Talia, and they have been doing our videos. So all the videos I do on Teachable, Eve does all of the editing for them, and Talia creates the captions that get put up so that you're able to actually have the written text to go with the visuals in that. So I want to thank both of those. And a more recent person has joined just in the last few weeks on a very part-time basis is Mags. And Mags is helping Laura downstairs with packing, particularly for clubs and things like that. And she may start doing a little bit more in the shop. So if you pop into the shop, it would be either Laura or Mags you're likely to meet. So those are all of our various virtual people. Nadia, let me know when you want to make any announcements for the prizes. I will. Are you ready to go? Yeah, just unmute yourself, or you're not muted. So just give me a shout when you want to announce it.
No problem. I'm just going to answer people's questions in the comments for now. So
okay.
I'll mute
Is there
myself.
Is there any other questions that are popped up that we should answer?
There's quite a few, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a
Gina,
few. If you, sorry, no, Joe, you go ahead.
No, I was just saying, Jean's asking what are the favorite projects from each member of the team?
That's a good one. Oh, Hannah and Laura, I'm going to give you a second downstairs to try and come up with those. Nadia, do you have a favorite project?
I prefer shawls. I'm a shawl knitter. I used to be a garment knitter, but now I don't get time anymore. Garment knitting is actually, Daside is one of my favorite Carol Feller projects. I've knit it more than once. I only really get time for shawls anymore. My girls are too young. So that's where I am right now. And that's probably going to change in about 6 months to a year when they go off into an older school group. So
and probably not too surprising, I am most definitely a garment person. I like knitting garments. I've got a slight problem in that my newest knit is always my favorite, so I'm a bit fickle that way. So probably right now Holly Blue is my favorite, simply because it's fresh in my mind and I really enjoyed knitting with it. So, but like if you ask me in a few months' time, it'll be something different. So definitely fickle. Hannah and Laura, do you want to unmute yourself if you can hear us down there and give us your favorites? Hang on, I'm going to what?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So look, I'm at an advantage because I have the rack here, so I can actually pull out my favorite. I have two favorites. You'll have to tell me when to stop talking. One of my favorites is the Hawthorn from last year. This is a newer worsted, and I think it's so slouchy and so nice and so cozy. So this is one of my favorites. And then I'm kind of like a broken record about this other one, which is the Soft Trails, my other favorite. It's in Bloss Delight. I could pop it on maybe. It's just so cute and like, I don't know what, cute and wonderful, maybe. These are my two favorites. I don't know. Let's see. Might not look great with the shirt, but let's try it. So see, really light and cozy and airy. It's a really good one. So those are mine. Those are my picks.
I love it on you, Laura.
Oh, is it cute? I can't see. Might be blending in with my jeans. Yeah, those are my favorites. And if anyone has any questions, I can, we can. The other favorite is the Sorn and the Iskra. I have too many favorites. Probably.
It's easier when you can see them all right there, because it's like, oh, there's this and there's this. Now,
I know we get to choose.
Poor Hannah's at a disadvantage because having joined late, she's kind of like she's playing catch up. But so Hannah, the question is there something that jumps out that you've been looking at over the last few weeks, few months?
I'd have to say the Iskra. Yeah, that's definitely. I as they've said, I'm at a disadvantage. I don't know a lot of the old patterns. I'm getting to learn them slowly, bit by bit. But the Iskra was the first one that I was here working when it came out, and I just love it. I like how it's cropped and it's a bit lower. So
it's fluffy.
It's fluffy and it's soft, and that's all I want in a knitted garment as well. Yeah. So
it's the best one.
Joe, we're going to ask you now. Do you have a favorite?
Whatever's in front of the camera works for me. It's always the next one.
See, we're
No,
the same.
I do. Over the years, Adrift was something that really impressed me. Like it was almost not there. It was just like but there was actually so much to it. It was a really interesting pattern to me. What was it, Akoya? A lot of the kind of early lacy
Yeah.
cardigans I really enjoyed. But yeah, no, everything like the in our household, you know, the most common question is, what are you knitting now, Carol? You know, it's,
True.
and watching it take shape over a few weeks
Yeah.
in the house, and then it kind of disappears from view for a while, and then suddenly it shows up again with a camera bag, and Carol's like, okay, let's do this. So yes, I have a different relationship with the patterns, but I mean, you wear a lot of your own patterns, you know, just not for business, because you wear them because you love them.
Yep.
So they're actually they're quite just they're part of our life.
This is true.
So you have another
Nadia,
question here, Carol?
do we?
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry,
I was
ahead.
going to say, do we have a winner, Nadia, for the first one, or do you want to wait and do you want to pick them all at the end or as we go through?
You're mute, Nadia.
Sorry, I was going through the entries as you said that, and the person that I stopped on was Tasman Measures.
Ah, perfect.
Tamsin, sorry.
Tamsin. Congratulations, Tamsin. First prize, we're going to send you on a discount code, a 20% discount code for the shop. So that's the first prize. So now the second question is.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Where are we? Next one is what Carol Feller, it's very weird referring to myself in the third person, someone else should be reading this, pattern has had the most projects on Ravelry. So, or anywhere, obviously, but it's easier. Ravelry is where you'll go to find them and actually and put them all together. So that's the next question. And while you're answering that, or maybe jumping over to Ravelry and figuring out which it is, or maybe you know straight away. I'm wondering, going to watch to see, is anyone like jumping in immediately to know it? I'd be impressed. I'm going to introduce you to Joe, because Joe is somebody, he's my husband, and nobody has ever actually seen him on camera before, really, except for taking behind a lens. He's kind of, was a few videos where you just see him with the camera like this.
Yeah, crouched and squinting.
Yes, but obviously he is a huge part of the business, because it wouldn't really have formed without him. He's like, there's right from talking through everything. He's the person who does the photographs for me. He also does the pattern layouts and inadvertent copy editing of the pattern. And also just a sounding board, particularly from a business end point of view. So it wouldn't have happened without that, without Joe. And the one thing that people often find the most interesting is the fact that he's also responsible for many of my namings, right from the start of the business all the way through to different pattern namings. So I'm going to let Joe talk for a minute now about how much fun it's to work with his wife.
It is fun. No, it is. It's actually a huge treat, because so like my full-time work is elsewhere. I'm a professor at a university. And so this is something that you know, I kind of get to do in outside of work. And the photography is actually really important to me, because it's a chance. I know Carol actually has a similar story when she talks about how she came into knitting, that it enabled her to bring together kind of the creative side of her personality and her interest, together with this kind of more engineering or mathematical kind of focus that she also has. And for me, participating in Stone Stitches is very much the same, that it's an opportunity to just act visually, act creatively. I'm not a knitter, so I don't have that as an output. But being able to kind of frame and capture those knits, and an opportunity to work with Carol. So I mean, it's like a photo shoot. Hopefully they come across as being well planned and professional, but they're really not. I mean, we wait for the right light and the rain to stop, and it might be sort of between dinner and dishes. Hey, let's go shoot a few photos. Most of them are shot within, you know, a kilometer or two of the house. We're lucky to live in a very beautiful part of the country. But no, it's a wonderful experience, and it's amazing that it's been 15 years.
It's a little
Going
disconcerting.
going from those first few patterns and then seeing the company grow in terms of its team, and seeing you grow as an artist, Carol. And yeah, no, it's been a good.
There's a
good
question
time.
from Wendy in here, and she said, ask Joe, what are you a professor of? Wendy's a professor in Washington, D.C. She never has enough time to knit, and she's inspired by your ability to work full-time and assist with this amazing business.
Yeah, so I'm a professor of information systems at University College Cork. So I'm part of the business school there.
Yeah, but weirdly, he started off as an anthropologist. So, so his business, but
once
only
an anthropologist, always an anthropologist.
Yeah, I know. I think so. I think that I think you do yourself a disservice by just putting a business label on yourself, because that, I think it came.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, it's there's definitely a lot more layers than that to
Yes,
you.
Yeah. No, and the research I do is all very very cultural in its nature, and it's actually, while it's not about knitting or kind of crafting communities, it is very much about that sort of broader maker community. So, people who are collaboratively building software, or the people who build the Wikipedia, all of those sorts of things. So it's how do humans use technology to create, right?
So we've got Elaine as a professor of computer science, and knitting keeps her sane. You should try it. Joe, you have tried crochet because your sister crochets, but it didn't quite stick, did it?
No, but I'm willing to go back. Yeah.
All right, I'm going to, what's the hardest photo shoot you've done with me? I'm trying to.
I'm not sure there's been any really negative experiences.
When we've got a lot
I
to do at one
occasionally
time.
fall off things. That's probably the biggest danger, because I'm not very aware of where I am when I'm taking photographs. So I'll kind of back up, and suddenly Carol will be, you should maybe not back up so many more.
Do be aware that we don't usually take them on the top of cliffs or anywhere dangerous.
Yes, no, nothing dangerous. But
he did lose my glasses last weekend, because
that's true.
I take them off for the photo shoots, and usually Joe will clip them somewhere to his shirt. And then I think you were backing up and you fell over the edge of something, and my glasses ended up in the fern. So we had to go retrieve them later, but we did find them. So that was good.
There's not been any negative ones. I think like the most positive ones is when we get the chance to actually travel to a location. Like, so the recent Galway trip was wonderful. Shooting all the sheep was fantastic.
Yeah.
And way back with the Contemporary Irish Knits book, actually traveling around the country to the mills.
That's one actually. The very first one we did was we traveled with our whole family up to Donegal, because it's a very long stretch. And so you'll see our kids are on we didn't end up using all of the photographs. Our youngest did end up in like several of the small kids' garments, because he was obviously the samples were made for them. But like, that's how because like the name that Joe picked originally, Stone Stitches, was because I started knitting when the kids were small in my stolen moments, and Joe came up with the name. And the photography is the same. It ends up being when there's a part to squeeze in between things. But we are, like you were saying, Joe, just so lucky that within 5-10 minutes of our house, there's a million different places to take photographs. I think my favorite location is the one that you see an awful lot of, which is there's a hill fort up at the top of our hill with a big panorama around. So Ravi would have been taken there, and it looks totally different in winter and summer. In the summer, it's high ferns, high gorse, but in the winter time, all of the ferns die away, so it's just this field of brown background. So that's like, if I had nowhere else to take photos, I think that would be my spot.
It's really special.
Does
Teresa's asking how many children we have. We have 4. Although they're not really children anymore.
Our youngest just turned 17, and we're starting to teach him to drive, which is great fun. Any knitters? They've all knit at various points. None of them are, I think our oldest, she is currently knitting in knittle, but it tends to get put aside when life is busy.
Actually, I should tell that story. So our second eldest, they were quite young at this point, maybe 8 or 9, and got quite into knitting as part of our morning commute to school, and was working on a sweater for, I don't know, several months of driving into school. And by the time the sweater was finished, it no longer fit him.
But he finished it by Christmas.
Yeah, and then gave it to his younger sibling. So I just thought that was
Just in case anyone's curious, it was a top-down seamless raglan.
it was in teal, if I remember.
And it was a yarn, it was a discontinued yarn, and I gave him the batch of it. And that's why we couldn't actually make it any bigger, is that he had used all of the yarn I actually had for it. So I think he probably got a bit bored anyway. At that point, was ready to be done.
Yeah. Carol, Suzanne's asking, is it easy to name patterns?
No. So the usual process is I'll say, it makes me think of this. And I'm like, Joe, what should I call it? And then Joe will.
That's not often. Well, I think that was true with the yarns.
Yeah.
With the yarn color names, but no, the patterns I think mostly come from you, actually.
Lately, I've gotten better at it.
Well, particularly the Irish names.
Yeah.
So your Irish is much better than mine.
Because at the beginning I didn't have as many Irish names to start off with, and over the last few years I've been trying to find Irish words that are easier for an international audience to pronounce, or I'll modify it. I'll take an Irish word and change it a little so it's got an Irish origin, and then it morphs into pseudo-Irish is probably the best way to put it. But yeah, the yarn names are the best one, because with the first I was going to give it away. Oh, we already knew. First yarn, newest sport. I realized that we answered it already. Our first yarn that we had done, we had all of these colors, and I knew what they reminded me of. So the best one is the August Storms, which is, it's a gray color, but there's tiny little bits of purple and blue in it. And I'm like, Joe, I don't know what to call this. And so he's like, what does it remind you of? And then do you have any memory
I
of,
think
like,
it was late summer, and we were actually visiting Florida. And of course at that time of year, you've got these huge afternoon storms that just roll into off the Gulf. And I think you were talking about that, about the change, that sudden change in the sky, and that sort of the feeling of that storm coming. And I think that's where that one came from. I have no idea where Frog on the Wall came from. That was
I think that was probably either me or one of the kids.
Yeah, I think it was one of the kids, actually.
Yeah. I know Angry Monkey was Lucas.
Angry Monkey was definitely Lucas. Yeah.
Nadia, are we ready to pick the next winner?
Yeah, the next winner is Cynthia Adkins.
Congratulations, Cynthia. And that winner, it's another 20% discount code. So now we have question 3, and it is, what was the first Stolen Stitches club? And the winner of this will get a digital book. So pop your questions up in the chat again, and let's see if anybody knows the answers. Has there been any questions that we've missed along the way, Nadia, that you've have seen?
There was one on was this your first business? It was a bit far back.
The answer is no, it wasn't. The first business was also kind of based on my own experience, because it was called Baby Orchard, and I still got Baby Orchard bags and Baby Orchard catalogs at home. And it was tied with one of my children was allergic to well, we call them nappies, diapers if you're in the States, and so I started using cloth nappies, and there was almost no cloth nappies available here. So of course, my next response is, obviously I've got to start a business selling cloth nappies. So it extended into a lot of natural parenting products, like breastfeeding products, baby slings and things like that. So that was, and bizarrely, we hadn't realized it until the last couple of months, a lot of where Stolen Stitches has become kind of started with that, because there was the product shop but we also had forums, we had information articles on parenting. So it was kind of a template for what we're doing now. And it wasn't intentional. It was only, I mean, it might have even been you, Joe, pointed it out that it's the same, it ended up with the same general.
There's a lot of
moving
similarity
part.
In terms of your own vision for it, right?
Yeah.
And what you wanted out of that company. It was a lot of the same things that you wanted out of Stolen Stitches when it began.
Yeah.
You know, which is that, you know, to build a community first, and then let the business grow around that rather than.
I mean, all of you know that like knitting is a very communal thing, particularly like originally it was very Ravelry focused with the forums and people chatting, and it really changed the whole knitting world. The fact that there was this big space that knitters could end up meeting up or buy patterns or find people, and it became a very international thing. And like when I started off, the business very much grew with my family. So when I began and the kids were really small, all I did was patterns, both in books, magazines, and sometimes as well in self-published, which came a little bit later. And then the teaching, as they got a little bit older, the teaching first of all locally and then internationally. And the yarn totally changed the business again, but I didn't have small children anymore, so I had a lot more flexibility. So it's even though it's now a bigger business and a lot more people, it was still built around our lives and our lifestyles and where we were. And I think it's the same for everybody working in the business, is that everybody has their own needs and their own situation. And so whether it's I need extra days off a week, or my children are small, so I'm just working a few hours, or working remotely, or sometimes in the office, that there's so many more ways of making everything kind of flexible work for people now. And that's kind of what we're about, is keeping it all about, being people in it is what's important. All right, I'm going to get another answer from Nadia there, because I'm realizing I'm very slow with my questions here.
That's fine. Prize 3 goes to Diane Roberts.
Congratulations, Diane. I love recognizing the names. I definitely recognize your name. So question number 4, what was the most recent Stolen Stitches yarn release? So that would be this year. And that's somewhat of a tricky one because there's been a couple this year. So which is the most recent one?
And
we may have
to Wendy, I just sent her that question as a direct message rather than to everyone. So if
I've
you're wondering,
ended up,
Wendy, that's what happened.
I've ended up doing that all of the time, because whoever has replied to you or sent you a message last, it automatically just gets sent to them. So yeah. So I'm going to was there any other questions that were popping up to make sure I don't miss any there?
Start of the business, favorite patterns.
What are you currently wearing, Carol?
We've had, I think, well, Joe doesn't know. Joe's actually in Florida at the moment, in case anyone's wondering why he's looking at a very different place. So it's like, hi, Joe, from across the world. But we've actually had the hottest day in Ireland, which is a whole 20 degrees centigrade. And it's going to be rainy again tomorrow, of course. But it means that I get to wear one of our summer tops. So this is Summer Drops, and it is one of my favorite for the summers. I'm going to stand up and go back and show you. So it's short one with just drop stitches here and just really simple top down, because it's a fast one to do, because you've got all these drop stitches, elongated stitches. So you do one, wrap it a few times, and then when you take it down, you suddenly got an inch worth of work. It's great. So it's a very good, fast summer one, particularly if it's a yarn you really love. So this one is in kind of a slubby silk, but it would work in the linen, it would work in the cotton, anything that's light enough that you want to wear in the summer, basically.
Actually, here question, Carol, on your favorite sheep breeds.
Favorite sheep breeds. Actually,
or maybe favorite fabrics even, or materials.
I've had a few new ones that I've been introduced to this year because, well, things like merino is always going to be a good, basic, soft, comfortable one. A lot of the Irish yarns outside of the Galway, it tends to be a mix-up, so you're not actually getting one specific sheep breed. But for our most recent shawl knit along, the Campo Nights one, we used Life in the Long Grass Corriedale, which I hadn't used before, and I really, really liked it. That it had like the softness of merino, but it still had a little bit more body than a lot of merino. So, and apparently it was crossbred from merino and other ones over, I don't know how long ago it was, but because I was curious about it, I actually went and investigated it. So yeah, Corriedale is, I think, a new one to me that I really liked. I'm seeing a few interesting answers popping up there. And so Joe doesn't knit. Nadia, do you have a favorite sheep breed?
I'm boring. I like merino. They're so cute.
It's a good, like merino is always a really good, I can't consider kind of a workhorse. It would be very reliable, soft, wearable, and so it's a good staple. I've had a few ones saying the tricky question. Nadia, are we ready with an answer for that last one?
Yeah, the answer that you have is Galiv, and the person I'm looking at with the right answer right now is Eliza Kelly.
Oh, congratulations, Eliza. And it was a tricky question because there was two this year and they were released very close to each other. So we had Jas, which is the one that came with, it was a new one with the Celtic Knits Club this year. But the Galav, which is the Irish for Galway, is with the Galway Blanket Project, and that was released a little after the Jas. So it was a tricky question because they were delivered very close together and they were released very close together. So there's a book coming your way. So our next one is question, where is it? Question 5. And what was my very first pattern? It was actually, I think, 2007. And I will give you a hint. It was in Knitty magazine, the online knitting magazine. So I'm going to have you have a look, see if you can find to find which one that was. And it's not my it wasn't the first self-published one, which would be a little different. That was actually something I will say that a lot of people now, when they start designing, they start to self-publishing. I actually was not comfortable starting with self-publishing. I felt the need to work with publishers and editors, first of all, to figure out how to learn how to do it, because I didn't know how to write patterns. I knew how to knit, and I knew what I knit, but there's a world of difference between that and actually putting a pattern together that other people can understand. So the process of working initially with people like Knitty Magazine, who are fantastic for getting people started in their design careers, and also Interweave, it would have been a magazine I would have knit with an awful lot at the beginning. That meant that by the time I came to do my own ones, I knew roughly how I wanted a pattern to how to write a pattern. I had a much better idea of how it worked. But yeah, Joe ends up being copy editor, because while we have a technical editor, there'd be occasional things where he knows my formatting, where this is always
it's funny because it's not really editing. It's when someone that you know really well says something that doesn't sound like them. and then suddenly Carol will get a message saying, I'm like, normally don't you always say this, or you know, in this part of the pattern you're calling it whatever, bumblebee lace, and then here you're calling it bumblebee lace pattern, and here you're calling it bumblebee lace something else, and I'm like, which one do you want? So but it's
and I'm so focused on the numbers, I don't always see it.
But it's really that consistent voice, because like at this point I know the flow of the pattern quite well, even though I don't have any real understanding of what's happening within it. You know? I suspect
you do.
Probably. Probably internalize some of it. I don't know.
I think so. And particularly as we move through, like I've had a lot of different technical editors over the years, and they will all have slightly different edits. And so like while you come out with the original of this is how I write it, they'll have their own viewpoint. And I think having Joe go through it before it ever goes into a PDF, it's like having someone a reality check of, okay, does this look like it's always supposed to look, or yeah, just to kind of keep it a little but consistent. Oh, Elsa
now it's getting
Louise.
personal, Carol.
All right, so we've got from Elsa Louise, where did I meet Joe? So I'll leave Joe tell this answer.
But yeah, so we met in 1993, and I was a undergraduate student in BC at the time, and went to Ireland for a semester. Carol was starting her first year of engineering at the same university, and we met, I don't know, the way students meet, and then just didn't stop meeting, I guess. We, I think, more or less from the day we met, we started spending time together, and a few months later, said,
The
okay,
odd thing being is that but it shouldn't have, because you had a whole year left after that, and I was meant to go to Italy for the summer, but my trip to Italy fell through, and Joe's like, why don't you come to Florida? So I went to Florida for the summer with him, and then your year had ended up being a 6 months.
I actually I shortened I shortened it 3.5 years to kind of hurry back to Ireland, and then I started a PhD there while Carol was finishing her degree.
But yeah, it was
we
definitely
married in 96.
Yeah,
so.
But it was definitely an accidental relationship, because it was at the time we got together, it's like, oh, this is great, but it didn't seem like it would be a 20 odd years
also
down the line.
it was a pre-internet relationship, so I mean there was hundreds of letters back and forth between Ireland and Florida during that time, and
it feels like a very long time ago.
One or two very expensive phone calls, because
I'm looking through Nancy. Clador sheep are another Irish heritage breed from Connemara, which hopefully is on its way back. That is a new one to me. I'm going to make note of that, because I had not heard of them before. Like in terms of actually sheep breeds and all the rest of it, Galway, the reason Galway is so interesting is the fact that it is it's one of the few heritage breeds that has been preserved within Ireland, that a lot of them have been crossbred so that they actually haven't preserved the heritage. And anyone who's gotten hold of the Gallup in the last week or so as they've been shipping out, you'll actually see it is quite different. It's a very creamy color, which is how it originally became associated with some of the first like the first Aran patterns that you would have seen, like back from 70, 80 years ago, when they were being made on the Aran Islands and shipped out. It would often be Galway wool, and it was not white. It was a really, really creamy color. Now, the way they were processed then is going to be really different, because obviously now scouring facilities tend to take a lot more of the lanolin out. So you're not going to have quite as much lanolin coming through. But the traditional ones, because they'd have been done in a non-commercial basis, it would have been much, much oilier. So while the fleece is the same, the way it's processed is going to be different in a commercial mill. I'm looking over here. Joyce is interested in Connemara sheep. A Joyce. Roscommon sheep from Crafts of Ireland are rearing sheep. Excellent. There's a lot more than I knew. I feel like we actually should put together a little, maybe it can make a really interesting blog, kind of pulling together other Irish sheep breeds. So anyone out there who does know of these, send us on a message, send us an email, make sure we don't forget any of these, because it would be really interesting. Because Galway has obviously come to our attention because the Galway Wool Co-op has actually kept it together as a single unit, but obviously they're not the only ones. So that's really good to know. I think we've got one final question after this, so I'm going to stop for a second here. That this one, the winner of the first pattern, is going to get one of my teachable classes. So Nadia, I'm going to pass it over there to see if you've got a winner there for us.
Yeah, it's Laurie Cropper. I'm just going to DM you now, Laurie.
Congratulations, Laurie. I should give you the answer. The answer is Dodie. And it was,
Mhm.
it's like a little snapshot of our family back from 2007, because we've got baby Lucas, we've got our dog at the time. There's a couple of the other kids play. It's a ball. It's a hand knit ball that was stuffed. And it was designed as a series of different decreases. So it's a way of experimenting with different decrease types, was what it was set up as.
Yeah.
So it was like a little learning experiment for me. I'm like, well, what happens if I do this? And what happens if I do this? So a good one for learning different types of decreases and what happens.
It's still on a bookshelf in our house.
Yeah,
Looking
it's become an
a little
animal
sad
toy.
and deflated, but yeah, but no, that it was.
Yeah, it was.
And swatching is near and dear to your heart, so it's a very fitting way to start.
An oversized swatch. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm going to make sure I get the final question in here. The final one is, what was the very first collaborative book that Stolen Stitches did with other designers? So I had lots of other individual books that I did myself, ones that I worked with other ones, but this is the first one that Stolen Stitches as a business did collaborative with other designers on board. So let's see if you know the answers to that one. So did I miss any other questions popping up there, or have most of them been answered? Oh. I think most have been answered up there. But yeah, so I mean, I'm going to put Joe back in the spotlight. Over the coming year, Joe is actually taking a sabbatical. So if anyone has any interesting ideas on Joe Carol collaborations over the next year that I can draw him into, throw them out there so I can keep him busy.
I'll be plenty busy, but that would be nice. Yeah.
But I think that, I mean, the reason we pulled Joe in here is because of the fact that he's never been in front of the camera, and it is such an enormous part of the business. If I was a really cruel mother, I'd probably have dragged the kids in behind there and just had them standing in the background as well, waving. But it does, I think it goes to, it makes sense because of the fact that it was a family business right from the start. Yeah.
And it's still a family. We're just not related to everyone.
This is true. This is true. I have in my head that there's something I need to talk to you about, Joe, that we had on. I had a list of stuff and now I've actually forgotten it. But yeah, I've gotten a brain fog. But so for the next couple of days, obviously we're going to be a little bit quieter around here because the party is going to be over. We are going to, anyone in Cork, we're going to be having people running through. I just remembered something. We had promised anyone who came in late to have a quick little tour around downstairs as well before we finish up. So we're kind of coming up a few minutes from the end. So I might see, I'm going to torture Hannah if she's still down there, and I'm going to see if I can, I might get you to unmute Hannah so that, oh, fantastic. Yeah, so I should be able to add a spotlight. Okay, here we go.
Okay.
Joe, I'm going to unspotlight you there so that people can see it a little bit more
Bye,
easily.
everyone. Enjoy the tour. Happy birthday, Stolen Stitches.
So here we go. We've got Hannah walking around the studio. There's lovely balloons in the background. And over here, we're on the newest stand. So this is New Worsted. And if we come around here, we've got our shelf of other yummy yarns. We've got, this is, I think, probably one of Laura's favorite spots because this is the soft, fluffy spot. We've got Cumulus, Caprito, and Sensei. So lots of different kind of mohair or alpaca brushed ones. We've got Liz's cake, our knitted cake up here, which Liz has very kindly sent in to us. I think my favorite are the little skeins of Nua and this book. They're just amazing. And Mr. Kite Bags. And over here, we've got another yarn that'll be coming soon, so we'll zip past that because we're not going to spoil the surprise. Oh, here's another Liz. We've got just like, this is like the ode to Liz over here. We've got Liz's leprechaun from Patrick's Day here. And then we have got our wall of both Irish yarn and Gilliatt. I'm always getting that. We've discovered, because Mags is French, we now know how we're supposed to pronounce it. Doesn't mean I can pronounce it. And that was Blosta and Fibre Space, the knitting. We're backing up. They're Blosta. Here's our Blosta yarn and our Blosta light. And a little bit further over is Coop Knits and Fibre Space. And then on the other side was our needles over on the far wall and buttons. And right behind there, we've got our Holly Blue and a bunch of blankets on. Here we go. Yeah, Holly Blue's the current knit along. There's Laura chilling before people arrived. And and 2 blankets. We've actually, because we've got 2 hand knits blankets, we've got the Curdot blanket on one side and the Shaftesbury blanket on the other side. They're all in Blosta. So we had to have we keep a sofa in the studio just to show off the blankets. And then the final part of the tour is over to our little birthday celebration corner, where we've got the knitted cake. That's not knitted cake, that's edible cake with fake knitting on it, and me sitting on the front, which it's a little disturbing having yourself sitting on a cake, but it's kind of cool at the same time. So we were kind of wondering, as that's not, as I'm not edible, as we're trying to figure out ways of preserving us. So we put her in the freezer, and like we'll whip fondant Carol out every now and again just to scare people. And I think that is the end of the tour, just finishing over with our little wall of samples over there. Thank you very much. I was going to say Hannah or Laura, but Laura was sitting down, so this one is definitely Hannah. I'm going to thank you again.
Bye.
Leave you off from the spotlight. And we're winding down to the last of our questions here. And so the last question, well, before, I won't give the answer first. I will leave Nadia jump in with a winner of our final one there.
And that is Patricia McCarthy.
Congratulations, Patricia. Patricia is actually, she's been a customer for quite a few years. So nice to see you on here. And that book was actually a particularly, it was a great learning experience as well, because it was the first time I had taken a lot of different design styles and actually tried to build them into a cohesive whole with a book. And it was the first big book that we did for the newest sport as well. And I discovered that I actually learn a lot from other designers when I'm knitting through, or I'm editing a pattern for another designer, because they've got such a different perspective. Working through a book like that with all of their different designs, I find myself going, oh, I never thought of doing it that way. So it ends up being an unexpected, really nice learning experience for me as well. So you never know when you're going to get a learning experience. Now, did I miss any questions along the way there, or because I haven't really been keeping an eye on the last few? I don't think so. Looks like most of those in. Am I going to make a book of your birthday pics? We hadn't actually thought about it, but that could actually be a very interesting idea. So anybody actually, speaking of the birthday pics, if you haven't been on the landing page or kind of keeping an eye on that pattern collection, what we've been doing over the last 2 weeks, and it's not ended yet, on Monday is the last day, I'm adding a pattern from every year, like either a favorite pattern or one that was influential, or something that it was maybe a big learning experience, or there was something that was quite unique or special about it for that year. And so we've got that collection going, and the 15% discount is available on that all the way through until Monday. And of course, you've got the whole website, not just the patterns, but yarn and anything else on the website has got 15% off with birthday 15 for the weekend as well. So just take advantage of that. It's over on Sunday night Irish time. There was a previous question about any new colors coming for the newer line. The answer is there should be, but I've no idea how long that's going to take, because I have got we've got a request in for a couple of ones that we're working towards, but as it's done in Peru and it takes a long time for toing and froing with a distributor, it does take a while. But there are a couple of colors that I would really like to add to that range. So the answer is yes, but not immediately. So I want to thank you all for joining us and kind of giving us a last final big fun experience on the final day. And thank you, Nadia, for pulling all of her winners and putting yourself on camera at the last minute. And Joe for also coming and joining us so that I get to spend an hour with my husband when he's in the other country. So thank you all again.